The story begins with a couple camping in the Scottish Highlands. They start to talk, and then the woman gives her boyfriend a silver letter opener as a gift. At night, the couple is having a romantic moment, but moments later, a creature rips open the tent and then attacks the girl, saving the man for last. 2 hours later, in North Wales, a soldier named Lawrence Cooper is in the forest, escaping from a group of men as they are conducting a test to join a military team. Cooper runs into them and decides to fight, but he is soon stopped by Captain Ryan, who congratulates him for having escaped for so long. He then asks him to kill a dog to be able to join his team, but Cooper refuses. The captain then tells him he's lost his chance to join the army and then shoots the dog. Cooper gets angry and decides to confront the captain, but he takes him down. 4 weeks later, in the Scottish Highlands, a squad of 6 soldiers gets off a helicopter in the forest to carry out a training exercise. Sergeant Harry starts giving them orders while Joe begins to complain about not being at home watching the football match. The sergeant continues to give instructions, stating that if they see anyone from the enemy team, they should attack without hesitation. Later, the sergeant approaches Cooper and shows him a map with the possible locations of the enemy team, so they will have to go to the gorge at night, as that's where there is less security. The sergeant orders them to move out. They advance through the forest, but decide to rest for a moment. Cooper tells them that many people have disappeared in this forest, mentioning the couple that was killed. They continue on their way, all the while being observed by Captain Ryan, who belongs to the enemy team. At night, they stop to camp while Cooper asks the other soldiers about their fears. The sergeant tells them a story from many years ago, in 1991, when he and a comrade decided to get tattoos. His comrade got a tattoo of a figure that was supposed to bring him luck, but days later in a war, he was blown to pieces by a grenade, and when they collected his body, the tattoo was intact. After finishing his story, the sergeant asks them to toast to his fallen comrade. Later, one of them changes the subject to try to lighten the mood, but suddenly, the body of a cow falls in front of them, causing Terry to start shooting at it. They approach to observe the cow's body and realize it wasn't killed by bullet wounds, but rather by fang marks. The others begin to panic, so the sergeant tries to calm them down and tells them they will take turns on guard duty to watch the area. Elsewhere, Captain Ryan observes his surroundings as someone watches him from a distance before trying to attack him. The next morning, the soldiers observe where the cow came from, deducing that it was already wounded before, and then continue on their way. They keep walking through the forest until they come across some remains of flesh, so they stop to inspect them. Then, they see an emergency flare in the sky and decide to follow it. A few meters ahead, they find a campsite which also has human remains, so the sergeant asks them to remain calm so they can identify the victims. They inspect the place, and suddenly, Captain Ryan appears. They start to treat his wounds while he begs them to get him out of there, as it is infested with creatures. Sergeant Harry asks him what he means by that, but the captain doesn't answer. Later, they try to communicate using a radio they had found, but are unsuccessful. So, they decide to collect all the ammunition and provisions, although the captain mentions that their weapons will be useless as they won't be able to harm the monsters. Seconds later, they hear a scream, followed by howls. They grab the captain and then run from the place to watch the area. The sergeant gives them their positions, but soon Bruce stops as he hears the same howls again. He gets on the defensive and suddenly he sees a creature run in front of him. He decides to flee, but a few steps further, he gets impaled on a branch and is then attacked by the beast, killing him. Moments later, Sergeant Harry tries to defend himself from the monster, but it attacks him, leaving him badly wounded. Cooper tries to help him and move him to a safe place. Harry and Cooper regroup with the rest of the team while they try to finish off the beasts. Then, Cooper sees a vehicle approaching in the distance, so he throws himself into the middle of the road to stop it. A woman named Megan tells them to get in, but once inside, a creature climbs onto the roof of the vehicle, preventing the car from starting. They wound the monster and managed to escape. On the way, Megan asks them what happened, and they reply that they were attacked by beasts and need a doctor. They arrive at a house to ask for medical assistance, but no one opens the door. They break in to inspect the place and find no one, so the rest of the soldiers come in to bandage the sergeant while they take the food that is on the stove. Cooper asks Megan where there's a telephone, and she tells him there's one 80 kilometers away. Cooper asks her where the nearest town is, and she replies that there's one 4 hours from there. They decide to go there to take the sergeant and the captain to a hospital. Cooper and Joe go outside the house to see if it's safe to get in the car, but they realize that the creatures have wrecked the car and that they are surrounded by them. Cooper decides to shoot the vehicle to make it explode and kill the beasts. They go back into the house, but seconds later, the creatures try to get in. They manage to close the door, but soon Terry vomits on the captain's head, making him angry. Later, Joe secures the windows while Megan asks them if they came to this place to kill the beasts, but Cooper mentions he has no idea what they are facing. She then explains that they are intelligent creatures because they are werewolves, and they plan to find a weak point to enter the house. But Cooper doesn't believe a word she says. He then checks on the sergeant's condition. Megan explains that she knows how to kill werewolves, but Cooper ignores her and asks for glue and whiskey to treat the sergeant's wounds. They take Harry to the second floor and begin to treat his injuries. While they do, he tells Megan that Cooper is an excellent person, but soon starts complaining about the pain, so he asks Cooper to knock him out. Cooper punches him, and they continue with the treatment. Moments later, Cooper asks Megan if she really believes werewolves exist. Megan explains that she has seen them before, and that soon he will too. Afterwards, Cooper meets with the rest of the soldiers to mention that they can still get out of there, but will have to stay and fight. Joe asks him what kind of enemies they are facing, so Megan explains that they are werewolves, telling them that every month when there's a full moon, they go out to hunt in a pack. Later, Megan asks for their names, so Cooper introduces them, saving Captain Ryan for last, explaining that he is not part of their platoon, so his presence is not important. This angers Ryan, and they start to argue. The captain pulls out a gun to threaten Cooper, but Megan disarms him by throwing an object at him. They then tie him to a chair. Suddenly, the power goes out as the wolves turned off the generators. Cooper tells Megan that he's starting to believe in the existence of werewolves. Cooper tells them to get ready to attack. Megan asks what she can do, but he tells her to just take care of her dog and watch Ryan. Meanwhile, the soldiers guard the doors and windows. When they see the beasts approaching, they start shooting. And then, Joe activates a grenade. They continue to protect the entrances, but soon, Cooper hears noises on the second floor and remembers that the sergeant is still up there. He decides to go up to protect him, but is quickly knocked down. Cooper tries to wake the sergeant up to help him, and they manage to take down one of the werewolves. The rest of the creatures leave, so Terry gets distracted and is suddenly captured by the beasts. Cooper asks the sergeant how he is, and he replies that he's better, then tells him that the platoon is his now. Cooper goes downstairs, and Megan mentions that the werewolves have taken Terry. They decide to go look for him, but the captain tells them to forget about him, as he's sure he's dead. Later, they begin to despair, as no one has come to rescue them. Megan explains that all they can do is wait for dawn. Minutes later, Cooper talks with Megan about the creatures. She mentions that he won't be able to sleep peacefully now that he knows about the existence of werewolves. The captain interrupts them to tell Cooper that he won't get out of there alive, which angers him. Megan tells him to ignore Ryan and then confesses that she knows him, as she was in contact with his platoon when they wanted to investigate the werewolves. Cooper asks the others how much ammunition they have left, and they inform him that they are starting to run low. Cooper decides to give Megan a weapon so she can defend herself. They start to think of possible solutions since they will soon be out of bullets. Megan mentions that there is a car in the barn, but they will need to get to the other side to bring it back. Joe offers to go, but Cooper explains that he'll need help, so he asks Spoon to distract the werewolves while Joe tries to get to the barn. Minutes later, Spoon goes outside the house to try to get the beast's attention. Joe then runs out towards the barn. A werewolf heads towards Spoon, so Megan tells him to come back. He runs to get back into the house, but the beast manages to climb up the rope. They cut it, causing the werewolf to fall. Meanwhile, Joe manages to get into the car. He starts it, and when the headlights turn on, he sees Terry being killed by a werewolf. The beast then tries to attack him. He puts the car in drive, and Cooper orders the others to go downstairs so they can get in the car as quickly as possible. Joe stops the vehicle as he feels the breathing of the beast in the back of the car. He decides to confront the creature but is soon killed. At the same time, the others go down and leave the house, but when they open the door, they only see the beast. Megan starts shooting at it and manages to take it down. They return to the house, and Megan starts playing the piano to try to improve the atmosphere while the soldiers reflect on everything that has happened to them as they listen to the howls of the beasts. Later, Cooper goes out to check the condition of the vehicle, but upon returning, he tells the others that it's no longer usable as the pump is broken and the belt is destroyed. Plus, it has lost a lot of gasoline. Harry asks where Joe's body is, and Cooper replies that it disappeared. Back in the kitchen, Cooper asks Spoon how many rounds they have left, and he says they only have 48 cartridges. Cooper then asks Captain Ryan if he likes football, then mentions that Joe loved it. The captain seems confused and asks what that has to do with their current situation. Cooper replies that Joe won't be able to watch the match now because he's not with them, and he starts to blame him. The captain then reminds him of the time he rejected him for not killing the dog and asks if that's the reason he's so angry. Cooper ignores his question and then thanks him, because if it weren't for that, he would now be taking orders from a selfish man who doesn't care what happens to his men. Moments later, the captain reveals that the special weapons unit sent him and his men to investigate the creatures. Harry asks why they were brought there for the exercise, knowing it was infested with werewolves. Ryan confesses that the weapons unit gave them permission to use Sergeant Harry's squad as bait. Cooper and the sergeant get angry and start to beat him, but as they knock him down, the captain begins to behave strangely, turning into a werewolf due to the wounds the creatures inflicted on him. They start to fight him, but the captain escapes through the window. Minutes later, they secure the windows again and then argue about what to do with the creatures. Megan explains how the werewolves gather to hunt and comes up with a plan to blow up the barn with a gas tank to eliminate the beasts. Later, they take out the gas tank, then lure the werewolves towards it to make it explode. Cooper asks the sergeant how he feels, and he replies that he's much better, then mentions that if the plan doesn't work, he will distract the creatures so they can escape. Cooper refuses to accept that idea. The sergeant then shows him his abdomen and explains that healing on his own is not normal, so he will probably turn into a werewolf too, just like the captain. Minutes later, they use the car to leave a trail of gasoline to blow up the gas tank in the barn. The sergeant lights it, and Cooper runs back to watch the explosion, but they realize they didn't eliminate any werewolves. Megan begins to apologize to Cooper as she had deceived them. In reality, there were never any werewolves in the barn. Cooper gets angry, and then a pair of wolves appear behind Megan. She begins to turn into a beast, but before she can finish her transformation, Harry kills her. They flee from the creatures. Spoon locks himself in a room and starts shooting, but runs out of ammunition. Meanwhile, Cooper and the sergeant try to defend themselves in another room, blocking the creature's path. Spoon keeps fighting the beast, but is soon killed by a pair of werewolves. The creatures try to enter the room where Cooper and Harry are, so they move to another location. The sergeant decides to sacrifice himself so that Cooper can escape. He tells him to hide in the basement and then blows up the house. Later, Cooper encounters Captain Ryan and starts to fight him, while Megan's dog helps him in the battle. Cooper seizes the moment and attacks the beast with a silver letter opener he found, then shoots it, managing to finish off the werewolf. The next morning, Cooper emerges from the basement with the dog as the sole survivor.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.